Well, let's get into our first topic now. Do we have a public duty to take on shoplifters? 0207862 2222 is the number. Now, this has come from Thames Valley Police's crime commissioner, who says we can't rely solely on police officers to stop thieves. Have a little listen.
If you've got someone in your store now stealing from you, call 999. Also, ideally, try and stop them leaving. You know, don't just stand there and watch, which a lot of people do, which frustrates me. You know, they push through the barrier at tube station, the staff are doing nothing. I agree, they're not, that's terrible, but you're the idiot standing there with a mobile phone. You're not doing anything either, are you?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he's talking about shopkeepers as much as anything, but customers can help too. We are in a shoplifting epidemic. Nearly 3 thefts are carried out every minute. Bobby, where does this start and stop? Because obviously the police cannot be on patrol in every shop when shoplifting takes place.
Mm-hmm. Again, I'm a big fan of the Marvel DC comics. And then they've got Batman, who's a vigilante. And it works well on screen in comics. But in the real world, I think that our safety as citizens comes first. And I think moral pressure, as we heard from the commissioner there, shouldn't mean a legal obligation from us. In fact, I think the moral pressure shouldn't exist, because as citizens, we're not trained to handle criminals, people committing crimes. In fact, asking people to intervene, I think, is unsafe and unreasonable. There was an incident recently, in fact, not shoplifting, but on the London Underground, where there was a gentleman who removed his trousers, and 4 commuters, they were shouting and saying, "Put your trousers back on," and he refused, and they tackled him safely, I think, but now they're at risk of prosecution. So the risk is, if you're a customer in a shop, and I'm like, well, actually, I'm going to intervene because I heard this commissioner saying that I should do, it's my duty. What if I go beyond what's deemed acceptable and I'm prosecuted? So actually, I think there's too much risk to me as the consumer.
And that will put people off, do you think, that idea? Even if their natural instincts are telling them that they want to uphold their community's safety and be part of the solution, not part of the problem, you think maybe in the back of their minds they're going to think repercussions of one sort.
Yeah, repercussions. And I think in society, of course, society exists because people take individual responsibility, but we shouldn't abrogate the responsibility of systemic solutions. Police, security guards, they're the people that are meant to enforce law and order, not us as individuals.
I mean, does it sound like a cop-out, Carole? What he's saying there is saying, look, we can't do this job anymore, so it's down to you.
I'll tell you what he sounds like. He sounds like an irresponsible, dangerous idiot. How dare he suggest that the public put themselves at physical risk to do a job that cops should be doing? You know, there's always mixed messages here. Now, throughout the years, I've heard coppers say, do not approach these people. Don't go anywhere near them because you could get hurt. Now, because they can't do their job properly, they're asking us to do it. In fact, that bloke actually had the brass neck to say, people who don't intervene are part of the problem. What a cheek. You know, do your job. There's something like 148,000 cops on our streets now. That's at least, hang on.
Are they on the streets?
Yes.
Do they tend to be out in our communities?
Are they in offices? Are they trying to catch
smart
people
policing
on social media? No, it's not smart. You know, shoplifting last year cost retailers £2.2 billion. That is a massive crime. And that bloke is saying, ring 999. Nonsense. No one's coming. Cops aren't going to come. Remember there was that ridiculous thing earlier this year where they were saying you have to have at least £200 worth of stuff stolen before the police will turn out. No. And the thing is, you know, I probably would approach a shoplifter, but, you know, my husband's forever telling me to shut up in public and stop confronting people about stuff like that because you can get hurt.
I don't know, though, Carole. There's just times when you see something happening in the street,
yes,
and you see people walking by when they
yes,
could get involved. That always seems like a symptom to me of a country that doesn't look after itself.
That's not true.
We don't care about
I'm
each
sorry,
other.
When security guards in big stores who are paid to stop shoplifting, when they're told by their bosses, don't intervene because you might get hurt, why the hell should the public then put themselves at physical risk? It's insane.
Okay.
That's man's man. When the first person gets stabbed or hit over the head and died, when that happens, what's he going to say then? OK, well, let's speak to someone who has done the deed, has stopped shoplifters themselves, Martin Gaunt. Martin, good to see you. Fantastic backdrop. You are in the place where you work, which is your life's work, your gift shop down there in Truro in Cornwall. What is it that makes you get involved? And what sort of things have you done? What have you seen?
It's all about community. So first thing to say is it's not about me losing stock. It's not about the short-term loss of profits, nothing to do with that. The majority of thefts that we were suffering from would result in somebody stealing from something here, turn it into quick cash, going to the car park, buying drugs. Now, what happens is the shoplifting is almost secondary. It brings drug dealers into town. You've got one drug dealer, you end up with a competitor drug dealer. You then end up with a gang that robs drug dealing gangs. You bring knives, you bring guns, you bring an awful lot more trouble into town by not confronting shoplifting than you do. And so far this morning, I've heard people say about risk. And what we're talking about here is deferment of suffering, the opposite of the deferment of gratification. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment, and as you can tell, I'm quite passionate about this because this argument's become so polarised, it's almost dumb. It's not a matter of putting a cape on and running in somewhere. You need to stop, look, listen, think about your community, think about what you can do. It's no longer good enough to say, leave it to the police, leave it to people that have been trained. And why do I want somebody that's done a 1-week SIC course and has no real skin in the game to step in and take trouble away? We have to take some form of responsibility. That's how I feel about it.
Okay, that risk that was pointed out about legal repercussions, that you could end up, in some case, being in more trouble than the person that's carrying out the act.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a load of hype, really. The fact is I would say to anybody, first of all, don't get involved in anything that you haven't witnessed. Don't assume that you know what's going on. But first of all, you see something happening, then be aware. Let people know that you're aware. You have a phone. Use your phone. Don't dip your eyes. Don't turn your head away. If you then go on to see something actually which is 99% non-deniable, then if you feel suitable, in a position to be able to do something to help, then please do. And obviously there is a risk involved, but unfortunately we're evolving into this world where we think it should be risk-free, and it isn't. And no matter how many times you say the police should do it, I had a meeting with my chief constable recently, and something he said stuck in my mind. He said, there's not very many of us, but there's an awful lot of you. And it was a feeling of, what can they do? Now, there was a term, it was called policing by consent. And this is when the majority of people would stand behind the police and have a proper sense of community.
Martin, can I ask you a question? It might seem weird. Can I ask how tall you are?
Yeah, I am 5'7",
right,
when I stand straight.
And you're a big guy. You look like quite a broad guy.
No,
because I'm
probably carrying a few pounds too many. I hate violence. Very rarely.
So what would happen if you confronted somebody that was violent? Have you confronted people and said?
I'd probably end up getting hurt.
Yeah, you would.
The fact is, do I want them to go and hurt somebody else? Do I want them to propagate more and greater violence?
So are you suggesting women should do this as well?
I don't think this is an issue of sexes.
It isn't. So you think a woman should walk up to a guy in a supermarket or something who's stealing lots of legs of lamb and say, you
Carole,
need to stop that?
Let Martin answer.
Well, he has. He's said a lot.
I think each individual should be treated as an adult. They shouldn't be told they have to intervene. They shouldn't be told incorrectly that they cannot intervene or that they're going to be prosecuted if they do. And it all comes back down to some form of responsibility, collective responsibility. If there happens to be 12 women, 6 men and a dog, and one perpetrator, then the combined effort of that community is going to have the upper hand.
I mean, it seems to me, Bobby, that what Martin's talking about here is creating an understanding, a collective understanding from a community to those people who would just walk in that it is not endorsed, it's not accepted, and it's not okay. And he's trying to do it individually, but a group of individuals will send out that message and will knock it on the head, won't it?
The problem with this...
I've done it. Honestly, our shoplifting has dropped by about 90%.
Yeah.
OK.
But again, I think it comes down to, what are the root causes of shoplifting. I think people that commit shoplifting and theft, they probably realise that the chances of being tackled by the security guards is low, the chances of police coming are low. So I think there needs to be great responsibility for the security forces and the police to say, we'll get involved, and when we catch someone, we'll prosecute them to the full extent of the law. And I think when criminals realise that there isn't much prosecution, then that's when you get the situation.
But then what it seems like Martin is saying, that those authorities, whether it's police, security guards, they don't have skin in the game. And he can be more effective by appealing to them directly and saying, this is my shop. I am passionate about this place. And he's saying that is more effective.
This is just so unrealistic. Martin, do you live in Truro? I don't know, but you try doing that in central London and saying to someone...
I was born in Enfield, Tottenham, so I'm fully aware of
well, so you
its
know what
horses
it's like in the capital city. And, you can't just go up to somebody and say, do you mind not doing that? Because they'll smack you in the face. That's what happens. That's the reality.
You absolutely can, and very rarely do they. When I approach people, I'm polite about them. Polite to them. We're going from one extreme to the other here. There's absolutely no harm in saying to somebody.
OK, I want to take some calls. Kev's in Derbyshire. Kev, do you think that the public should get involved in the way this crime commissioner has said, and in the way that Martin is saying we all need to do as a community?
No, I don't. I think the police should do more. When I was a young police officer, I'm retired now, we had shoplifting squads, uniformed police officers who were able to speak to store detectives, and they would have a sort of a joint approach and arrest shoplifters. Shoplifters are stealing, they're committing the offence of theft, and that's why we should be tackling them. The fact that we don't means that these shoplifters now can just do as they like, and the police officers are not doing sufficient.
Do you think it's just a numbers game, Kev, that we haven't got the numbers of police that we used to have to do this job? Or do you think it's a shift in focus where we're saying this is not important, we have other things to deal with?
I think it's the latter that they're thinking, that this is not important,
yes,
and we've got other things to deal with. But in actual fact, that's not the case. I know that police officers are very much less in number, but this is a crime. This is a criminal act, and it's a criminal act against the community. So we should be dealing with it.
Let's take another call. Emma's in London. Emma, do you think it's our responsibility as a group, as a community, to get involved when we see shoplifting happening?
I personally did try to stop a shoplifter once and ended up getting stabbed in the arm.
There you go.
So the police afterwards gave me a huge dressing down, a big speaking to about not getting involved and leaving this sort of thing well alone. It was their job to do. 15 years on, I still have a scar on my arm from getting stabbed from that.
OK, Emma, would you never do it again? Does that go without saying?
No way. I mean, if there's anyone that I can tell and direct it to, I would happily do that. But personally, would never put myself in harm's way again. And I would really hope that no one else would put themselves in harm's way either. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Can I ask Emma a question? So when you did it the first time, what was going through your head? What were you assessing and thinking, I'm going to get involved and intervene?
A lot of my family are in the police and they have been in the armed forces. And I think it was just something sort of in my head that my family had always said, try and help, try and do your best. And it never occurred to me that somebody was going to be violent or have a weapon. I just honestly thought I was helping the shop I was in.
Okay.
You see, that's the point, isn't it? That really knocks down Martin's argument. The second caller, a woman was stabbed in the arm. Emma was stabbed in the arm. I just want to
give Martin the last word there, because Martin, what Emma's saying is obviously the loss of whatever is that person was going to take weighed up against, personal harm, possibly losing a life. That's an easy equation for us to work out. Most of us is go, right, let them away.
If the equation was that simple, I would absolutely agree. But it isn't that. I keep saying it's not about the shoplifting loss. It's not about the £20 worth of goods that are going out the door. We have to be realistic and realise what this is feeding into. I've seen shoplifting basically being, it leads into the abuse of women, it leads into the enslavement of children. And you know, it's a much bigger issue. It's about community. And you know, there are risks. Life's full of risks. And unfortunately, it's my personal belief that we have to take some. Otherwise, the odds end up just so far against us.
Listen, thank you so much for joining us today, Martin, and good luck with that shop down in Truro and with your business. It's hard enough being a shopkeeper as it is. We have to move on.